This is Doug, and welcome to the Practicing Accountant podcast. Today, our topic is probably long overdue. There's a word that we've used a lot around here at the Practicing Accountant, and that word is intentional. So today, we're going to get intentional about talking about intention, how you use it, why you use it, and how it can benefit both your firm and your personal life. We hope you enjoy this episode. So I had this great Saturday, okay? And it started out and I woke up very early and I was at Home Depot right when it opened, which on the weekends it opens at 6. And you have to, on weekends, Home Depot, you can't go before. If you go after 9, like it's just a horrible
Yeah,
experience. The
yeah.
parking lot, the number of people, how many people are getting flowers and buying a new, it's just a mess. So you gotta get there early. So I got there early and I got this garage hinge that I've been looking for, and or our garage broke, so I had to fix it. And I got the hinge. I got the right hinge. I had like 4 choices to pick from, and I got the right one somehow. And I got home. I installed that, and I'm like, "What's next?" And then I fixed something in the garage, and what's next? And then I fixed something in the yard. What's next? And I painted the railing on the deck. Finished it finally after months. What's next? Like I just kept like hammering things out over and over
Man,
again. It's
good for
great.
you.
It's a good Saturday. And then at the end of it, I had a nice meal with the family and fell asleep promptly in front of the television show about 9:30 and called it my son kicked me out of the basement, so I called it a Saturday at that point. Sunday, similar thing. I was in the office here at 5 because the time change got me all screwed up,
Yep.
and did my billing. I did my business development emails for the month. I did all the stuff that I want to do at the beginning of each month. And by 10 o'clock, I'm at home and I get my wife and we go to the bar to watch the Bronco game, which was a debacle.
Mm-hmm.
But we, got to enjoy Sunday, and again fell asleep about 9:30 on the couch watching a movie with my son last night. Why do I share my weekend? My point is that weekend could have gone very differently. I could have woken up whenever on Saturday, putzed around, played too much Scrabble, drank too much coffee, took a nap, maybe did something or not, and then Saturday's gone. Sunday could have looked like a lazy Sunday watching too many movies or Netflix. And the one key ingredient that made a difference for my weekend was intention. And I think you made a point. Like we talk about intention on this podcast a lot, but we don't actually like really talk about intention.
Yeah.
Like what does that really mean? Well, what intention really means is that you are going to act on the goals you have. You're going to put momentum into the things you're trying to accomplish intentionally.
Mm.
I spoke to a bunch of students on Friday night at the university here, and I gave them like 3 or 4 key ingredients on how to be successful in accounting. It was things like coachability and networking and emotional intelligence. And I said a bunch of stuff. And at the very end of it, I said, now listen, here's the trick about everything I've just told you. No one's going to make you do any of this. No one's going to schedule a meeting to make sure you're doing these things. No one's going to come forward and say, hey, this is what you have to do. You have to do this on your own. And the only way you can do it is by being intentional. Like you have to be intentional to act.
Yep.
I wrapped up a coaching engagement with a client today who's at a bigger firm. And whenever I get to an end of a coaching engagement, I get a little bit nervous because I'm like, are they really going to do all the things that they said they're going to do after we're done? Like, are they going to keep going? And so I always make my clients make a bet. I said, make a bet. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, make a bet. Like, make a bet about something you're going to do and put intention behind so that I know that I've got still some accountability over you. And his bet was he had to hit a certain business development goal. He had to bring in a certain number of clients. And if he does it, then I have to do 50 burpees. If he doesn't do it, then he has to do 50 burpees.
That's fun.
But again, it's just my way of creating intention around the things that people say are most important to them. I got asked a question on Friday night, like, hey, when does coaching work and when doesn't it work? And I said, well, I need coachability. I need someone who's motivated with a growth mindset. And then I need someone who's actually shooting for the thing they want. Because sometimes we lack intention for a goal because it's not the goal we want to accomplish. Like, it's not actually something we want to do. So if you have any evidence of you actually doing it, you don't. And the reason why is because it's really not that important to you.
Or it's not defined enough.
Yeah, sure.
Like oftentimes the goal that somebody sets is so ambiguous that the steps to get to that goal can't be defined.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to be rich, or I want to be ripped,
Right.
or, you know, if those are the things, it's hard to set benchmarks to a very big, hairy, audacious goal that isn't super well defined. Other than
You want to know the secret to getting rich?
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe I should charge you for this. You want to know the secret to getting rich? The secret to getting rich is hanging out with rich people.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Hang out with rich people and get them to buy whatever you're selling, or sell to the people they know, or whatever. But that's the day. Like, that's it. Like, there's a book out there called Think and Grow Rich, which is a great book. But all you're doing is just practicing the mindset of a successful person and journaling on it day in and day out. That's the secret of Think to Grow Rich. But the secret of getting rich is hanging out with rich people and being with them and talking with them and selling to them and around them. You know, I've got a family member who's extremely successful, and he's extremely successful because he started hanging out with extremely successful people.
And you should clarify that that's not because they're giving you money. It's because you're what's that? You're the average of the 5 people you hang out with.
That, and you become part of their circle.
Yep.
Yeah.
You learn, you make connections.
Yeah. And if you're networking with their kind, quote unquote, those are my words. But that's the secret. So anyway, so you can be intentional about that, right? You can be intentional about creating a circle of influence of folks that have a lot of wealth. And in doing so, it may help you achieve some of the goals that tend to be a little bit more nebulous. That can be a real clear action item and a step to take. But you're right. I think, you know, when you can't really point a finger to what it is you're supposed to do or be intentional about, then your goal needs to be a little bit more defined.
Yeah.
Needs to be a little more clear. Am I trying to get, like I always love the question, like, okay, how would you make an extra 200 grand this year? And people are like, well, I don't know. I can't. Well, no, you could. Like, what would you do? I don't know. Think about it. Like, what would you be intentional about? Like, how would you work your life differently every day if that was your goal? It would look different than what you're doing right now.
Yep.
And that would ultimately potentially lead you to $200,000 or more wealth. But if you're not intentional about it, if you just keep going about what you're currently doing, you're not going to get anywhere except for where you're currently going.
Yeah.
I like I hate this analogy, and this is way out there, so I apologize. You might just want to delete this entire thing I'm about to say. But have you ever driven up to a stoplight? And maybe I've told you this story before, but have you ever driven up to a stoplight and it's turning yellow and you've wondered, like, there's 2 choices here. You know, one, I can slow down and stop and stay here for another 5 minutes and wait for my turn again. Or I can speed through this light and move on with my life. Like, what are those difference? What's the difference between the life in which I stopped and the difference in the life that I actually sped through the light? Have you ever popped in your head?
Butterfly effect on me there.
Kind of. I actually have a drawing of it. So here's the car, and there's the stoplight. And, you know, if you decide to stop, then that's one path. If you decide to go, that's another. And it's called a divergent line. And the stoplight is a vertex. So I told you I'm getting a little weird here.
Yeah, keep going. I like it.
but the point of that is that, you know, having intention to make another $200,000 this year versus not, that's a different path. And I'm not saying you're going to get to 200, but you might get to more income than you otherwise would. That's what intention does. Intention creates a different path for your life than you currently have. And it makes changes. And if you point it at a goal, something you really want to accomplish, the chances of you achieving it are a lot higher with intention than without it.
And let's drill in on intention a little bit. I think by intention, or at least I mean something that you act upon, not just getting intentional about learning about things, but then getting intentional about implementing those things that you learned. There's kind of 2 steps. You can learn everything. You can read every book and listen to every podcast, but if you don't actually implement that in your life and get intentional about that side of it, the doing side of it, then you're going to be in about the same spot. the delta between what you know you should do based on that and what you do, I think is where your wealth or where your success comes in.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, intention's a mental state. It's not, intention isn't necessarily an act itself. Intention is the mindset that says, this is something I want to do and want to accomplish. And it's that intention that causes you to act and behave differently than you otherwise would. And that's the opportunity to create a different path for your business or your life that no one's going to make you have.
Yep.
And so getting into a state of intention, a mental state of intention, I think is depending on the severity or the seriousness in which you're approaching the goal of whatever it is. Like networking, for instance. Like, I'm going to get intentional about networking. Okay, prove it.
And what is
how?
That?
Right.
The networking is one of those ambiguous goals. I'm going to get better at networking. What does that mean?
Well, networking isn't necessarily a goal in and of itself. I mean, it can be, but the goal is usually I want to get more business, or I want to build my brand, or I want to be more recognized in my community, or I want to have a whatever. And networking is a tactic in which you can accomplish it. Sure. But putting intention behind networking would look like kind of like what I did yesterday in the morning. Like, I spent 2 hours just, firing off emails to people that it's time to reach out to. They're on my clock or on my calendar to reach out because it's been a couple months, or there's a prospect we talked about at one point that I need to follow up on. Like, put it this way. Yesterday, I put intention behind building my business. And as of now, 20, it's been longer than that. So let's call it 36 hours later. I've got probably 4 different sessions booked this month that I didn't have yesterday.
Nice.
But if I hadn't put that intention there, I'd be sitting here today without those meetings booked, and it'd probably be lingering in the back of my mind of something I should still do, and maybe we'll try to do tonight or whatever. But that's the result of intention. My goal was to get more business booked in November, and preferably in the first 3 weeks, so I can take the 4th week off. And the intention in action looked like me sending those emails, reminding people to meet, booking up my calendar, and it created my goal.
I think accountants have a hard time finding room for intention.
Sure.
A lot of it is accidental, or just happens to you because you're so busy that you don't have time for that intention piece, that important but not urgent box that we always talk about.
Right. No, exactly.
And that's the hamster wheel that you get on, is the lack of time to be intentional, to do any of these things that we talk about: raising prices, getting more clients, firing clients. So where do you find the time for that first step of intention?
You don't find it, you make it. I think that's the first thing. I think a lot of accountants wait for that perfect Tuesday when there's nothing booked and I don't have any work to do and everything's been filed, and then Tuesday rolls around and it starts with an email from a client who's got a project, and then there's I forgot to do something last month and I got to do that now, and then I'm going to take a longer lunch, and then day's all over anyway. I'm just going to work on the stuff I'm going to do tomorrow, and it's gone. But you have to make that time. You have to say, I'm going to spend 4 hours specifically on reaching out to potential clients, building my network. Like, you've got to make that time happen because no one else will make it happen. And I think I think there's a lot of accountants that are waiting for things to happen or changes to be made. And fortunately, there are a lot of those accountants, or else I probably wouldn't have the job that I have. Because at the end of the day, I'm kind of an intention maker.
Yeah.
Part of my job description is to create intention around an activity that otherwise they wouldn't give. I help them make those things happen so that they can have the firm and the business and the lifestyle that they prefer to have.
Yep. You need intention to create the time to make more intention. It's kind of this snowball effect.
Well, you need a why, right?
Yeah.
Like, my why this month is clear. Like, I do not want to work the week of Thanksgiving. So I need to pack the next 3 weeks with as much coaching as I can so that I'm not sitting there on Tuesday, the 26th of November, feeling guilty that I'm on the couch watching football because, I wouldn't have deserved it. But now, with some intention, with a clear why am I doing this right now? Why am I reaching out to all these people and booking these appointments? Because I don't want to work that week. And I'm pretty motivated for that. And so my intention gets pretty clear. And my calendar looks like shit because of it, but that's what it has to be so that I can get to, whatever the date is, 25th, 24th, whatever that is, that week, and be sitting there going, hey, I did it. I had a full month in 3 weeks, and I can enjoy time with my family now while they're off too.
Yep.
So I think I said a word there that I want to highlight, and it's why. Why are you being intentional? Well, because I want something really bad. Then, okay, well, that makes sense. You should do that then. You should make that happen. And if you're not acting on it, your why may not be strong enough.
Yep.
You may not have a full understanding of why.
The pain might not be big enough to be the why for a lot of firms. And the why doesn't just have to be to take a week off during Thanksgiving. It could be or should be to have a better tax season next year.
Right.
It can be much bigger than just 1 week off. But until that pain is so bad that you change, until that the pain of change is less than the pain of staying where you are, a lot of people won't change. But if you just get intentional and be a little bit more proactive about that change.
Are you working the week of Thanksgiving?
I kind of work all the time because I enjoy it.
Okay.
Not doing any technical things, but just thinking and creating and doing. But yeah, I'll be available. Yeah,
bad example. You're a bad example.
Yeah.
What is something you're being intentional about now?
That's a good question. Learning, marketing. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Learning more deeply, social media advertising.
So what evidence would you provide to show that you are intentional about learning more about social media and marketing?
My Google history.
The amount of crap you've read.
Yeah. But as far as action, none. Same thing. Yeah, that's a great point. You're always kind of waiting on something to take the action that you should do.
Right. And if we took the waiting out of it, and if we said there's nothing to wait for, and we said this is just up to you now to really put that energy into this, what would that look like? And you don't have to answer that, but that's the question I would float. Like, what evidence would you create to show that you are truly, really intentional about this? That this is the most important thing to you right now. And it might be a short-term thing or a long-term thing, but that evidence shows you that you really are being intentional. Like, that's either a phone call you set up, a class that you took, or an action that you put out there to test. There would be real clear evidence to show how intentional you're being. And I think that evidence is critical in being able to inventory, to say, here's the proof of how intentional I'm being. Here are the steps I've taken. Here's the number of hours I've dedicated to it. Here's the number of calls I made for it. Here's the path that I'm on and taking that shows you that I am clearly being intentional. And that feels good.
Yeah.
It shows you that you are. Yeah, you can accomplish something, and you set your mind to it with the intention, then you can accomplish it.
And not even accomplish it, at least try and fail at it, and then you learn from it.
Yeah, right, and, totally. Yeah, it's not really about success, is it? It's just about, putting forth that little effort that makes a difference and allows you to learn and try something else.
Yep.
So
awesome.
I think we talk enough about intentional here today, but I guess, I would ask those listening to do an inventory on their own intentions. What are they currently intentional about? And what evidence do they have to show for it? Beyond just, I'd like that. That'd be nice. Okay. But what have you actually done?
Yep.
Or are you doing, or are you planning to do? And put a context around it. Like, what am I being, I had I led a group for our local state society last week. And the conversation was around, what are you being intentional for in the next 2 months of this year that you'll benefit from next busy season? And, everyone had some various responses to that, but, what evidence can you create in the next 2 months to show that you're trying to have a better busy season next year?
Yep. Awesome, dude.
That's intention. Yep. Awesome. Cheers.
Thanks, Doug.
Good talk. Good talk.
See ya.
See ya. Thank you for watching this episode of the Practicing Accountant podcast, where we finally got intentional about intention. We hope that from that you find that some opportunities to be intentional about things that are important for your firm, important for your career, and important for your life. You know, of all the things that you want to do, it takes a spark, and that spark comes from intention, the mindset to achieve the goals you set out for yourself and your firm. Please share and like this episode, and we hope you tune in for a future episode of the Practicing Accountant podcast. Otherwise, again, thank you for watching, and cheers.